When Danny Kaye died in 1987, his estate held a shocking secret. Hidden away were 89,000 items spanning 7 decades, from unproduced scripts to mysterious letters that changed everything we knew about him. But the most explosive discovery wasn't in his papers. It was in a collection of personal items that revealed the dark truth about Hollywood's favorite comedian, the paralyzing fears he hid from everyone, the threats that made him question everything, and a scandal that could have ended his career. Danny Kaye was born on January 18, 1911, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents, Jacob and Clara Kaminsky, were Jewish immigrants from Ukraine. They had come to America hoping for a better life, but like many families at the time, they struggled with money. Jacob worked as a tailor, sewing clothes for long hours just to keep food on the table. Their home was a small apartment on Miller Avenue where Danny lived with his parents, 2 older brothers, and his grandmother. Even in a house filled with hardship, laughter was never far away. Danny had a natural gift for entertaining. He loved making funny faces and singing songs to anyone who would listen. His family didn't have much, but they had each other, and Danny's humor made even the hardest days feel a little lighter. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, things went from bad to worse. Jobs disappeared, and families across Brooklyn struggled to survive. The Kaminskys were no different. Money was tight, and opportunities were scarce. But Danny never lost his sense of humor. If anything, he leaned into it even more. He realized that laughter could lift spirits, not just for his family, but for everyone around him. He went to Thomas Jefferson High School, but never felt at home in a classroom. His mind was always on performing. Sitting through lessons felt like a waste of time when all he wanted to do was be on stage. Eventually, he dropped out, a decision that was partly driven by his love for entertainment and partly by the need to support himself. To make money, he took on whatever jobs he could find. He worked as a soda jerk, scooping ice cream and making drinks at a local shop. He sold insurance for a brief time. He even got a job in a dentist's office, though that didn't last long. One day, he started playing around with the dental drill and carved into the office's wooden furniture. That was the end of his time in dentistry. Losing his mother in his early teens hit him hard. Grief made him restless. He needed an escape, so he and a friend ran away to Florida. With no real plan, they relied on their ability to entertain. They sang on street corners and played guitar, earning just enough to get by. When Danny returned to New York, he had more money in his pocket than when he had left. It wasn't much, but it was proof his talent could take him places. Determined to make something of himself, he started performing in local theater groups. He got his first real break in the early 1930s when he joined a vaudeville act called the Three Terpsichoreans. This was when he decided to change his name. David Kaminsky was a name from his past, but Danny Kaye felt like someone new, someone made for the stage. Vaudeville was a tough business. The shows were fast-paced, with comedians, musicians, dancers, and magicians all fighting for the audience's attention. But Danny stood out. His energy was electric, his timing flawless. In 1933, the Three Terpsichoreans went on tour, traveling across the United States and even to Asia. During one performance in Osaka, Japan, a typhoon hit. The power went out, leaving the entire theater in darkness. Instead of panicking, Danny grabbed a flashlight, walked onto the stage, and started singing. He went through every song he could think of, keeping the audience entertained until the storm passed. It was moments like these that set him apart. He wasn't just a performer, he was a showman. He also spent time performing in the Catskill Mountains, a place known as the Borscht Belt. It was a popular vacation spot for Jewish families, and the hotels there were famous for their live entertainment. Many great comedians got their start in the Catskills, and Danny was no exception. He worked as a tumbler, an entertainer who kept guests laughing between acts. It was the perfect training ground. He learned how to read an audience, how to improvise, and how to turn any situation into comedy. Then, in 1939, he got his big break in a musical comedy called The Straw Hat Review. The show opened on September 29th at the Ambassador Theater in New York. It had started as a summer production at Camp Tamiment, a theater retreat in Pennsylvania, but producers saw potential and decided to bring it to Broadway. The cast was full of rising stars, including Imogene Coca, Alfred Drake, and Jerome Robbins. Kaye was one of them. For him, this show was more than just another performance. It was his chance to stand out. His energy, humor, and musical talent made him unforgettable. He had a way of delivering lines that made people laugh before they even knew why. His songs were playful and fast-paced, showing off a skill that would later become his trademark. The show only ran for 75 performances and closed on December 2nd, but by then, Kaye had already made an impression. Not long after, he started performing at La Martinique, a well-known nightclub where he met Sylvia Fine. She was a talented composer and writer who would later become his wife. She saw something special in him and began crafting material that played to his strengths. Together, they built an act that was sharp, funny, and completely unique. Audiences loved him, and soon Broadway came calling again. In 1941, Kaye took on a role in Lady in the Dark, a musical that would change everything for him. It opened at the Alvin Theater on January 23rd and ran for 467 performances. The show was different from anything Broadway had seen before. Instead of a typical musical, the story was told through dream sequences that explored the main character's subconscious. Gertrude Lawrence played the lead role of Liza Elliott, a successful magazine editor struggling with self-doubt. The music, written by Kurt Weill with lyrics by Ira Gershwin, wove through her dreams, creating a world that felt surreal and deeply personal. Kaye played Russell Paxton, a flamboyant fashion photographer. His role wasn't the biggest, but one song made him the star of the show. It was called Tchaikovsky. In just under a minute, Kaye rattled off the names of more than 50 Russian composers in a rapid-fire rhythm. The song was demanding. It required perfect breath control, sharp timing, and a level of confidence that only a few performers could pull off. When Kaye sang it, the audience exploded with applause. Night after night, his performance brought the house down. Meanwhile, Danny Kaye didn't just step into Hollywood, he burst onto the scene with an energy no one had seen before. His first major film, Up in Arms, 1944, was a turning point. It wasn't just another musical comedy, it was a film built around Kaye's unique talent. He played Danny Weems, a hypochondriac elevator operator who gets drafted into the army. The role let him show off his fast-talking humor, physical comedy, and musical skills all at once. Audiences loved it. Critics took notice. The film earned 2 Academy Award nominations and made Kaye a star overnight. This wasn't just luck. Samuel Goldwyn, one of Hollywood's biggest producers, saw Kaye's potential early on. He signed him to a contract, making sure no other studio could grab him. The production of Up in Arms took months, running from June to September 1943. The film's original title, With Flying Colors, was eventually changed. It featured Dinah Shore, Dana Andrews, and Constance Dowling in key roles. The soundtrack included songs by Harold Arlen and Ted Koehler, designed to match Kaye's style. Everything in the film was made to highlight what he could do best. 3 years later, Kaye took on one of his most famous roles in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, 1947. The film was based on a short story by James Thurber, but it wasn't a direct adaptation. Hollywood turned it into a full-scale adventure. Kaye played Walter Mitty, a timid proofreader who escapes his dull life through elaborate daydreams. One moment, he's a fearless pilot. The next, he's a gunslinger. Then, he's a brilliant surgeon. But when a real mystery enters his life, he finds himself in an adventure far bigger than anything he ever imagined. The film had everything: a strong supporting cast, including Virginia Mayo, Ann Rutherford, and Boris Karloff. A fast-moving story filled with twists and turns. And most importantly, it had Kaye at his best. One of the most famous scenes featured him performing Anatole of Paris, a song packed with tongue-twisting lyrics. His wife, Sylvia Fine, wrote another musical number for the film, Symphony for Unstrung Tongue. These moments weren't just entertaining. They showed Kaye's incredible ability to blend music and comedy in a way no one else could. The film was a hit, and his performance cemented his place as one of Hollywood's most unique stars. In 1949, he took on a new challenge with The Inspector General. This musical comedy was loosely based on a play by Russian writer Nikolai Gogol. Kaye played Georgy, an illiterate drifter who gets mistaken for an important government official. The film had everything Kaye needed to shine: quick-witted dialogue, slapstick humor, and a role that let him switch between different accents and personalities. The story was more than just comedy. It had a deeper message about corruption and deception. Georgy, a simple man, accidentally exposes the greed of powerful officials. The film's director, Henry Koster, made sure to balance humor with a meaningful story. The film's budget was nearly $3 million, making it one of Kaye's biggest productions at the time. Shot in Technicolor, it was visually stunning, but Kaye's performance was the real highlight. His ability to mix clever humor with deeper themes set him apart from other actors of his era. By the late 1950s, Kaye had proven himself as a top comedian, but he wasn't afraid to take on something different. In 1959, he starred in The Five Pennies, a biographical drama about jazz musician Red Nichols. This film was a departure from his usual comedies. Kaye played Nichols, a talented musician who struggles to balance his passion for jazz with his personal life. The role required a different side of Kaye, one that was more serious and emotional. The film featured a strong supporting cast, including Barbara Bel Geddes as Nichols's wife and Tuesday Weld as his daughter. Real-life jazz legends like Louis Armstrong appeared, giving the film an authentic feel. The title, The Five Pennies, referred to Nichols's band, which included famous musicians like Glenn Miller and Jimmy Dorsey. The film took some creative liberties with Nichols's life, but it captured the essence of his love for music and the sacrifices he made along the way. Meanwhile, Danny Kaye became UNICEF's first Goodwill Ambassador in 1954, but his connection to the organization started in an unusual way. He was on a flight from England to the United States when he met Maurice Pate, UNICEF's executive director. During the trip, a fire forced the plane to make an emergency landing. While they waited, Pate told Kaye about UNICEF's work and the challenges children faced around the world. Kaye listened, and something in him changed. That conversation led to a lifelong commitment. This wasn't just another celebrity partnership. Kaye didn't just lend his name to the cause, he made it his own. He traveled to more than 60 countries, meeting children, parents, and doctors. He walked through villages, visited hospitals, and saw for himself what UNICEF was trying to change. He didn't just give speeches, he made people care. UNICEF needed someone like him. At the time, the organization was expanding beyond emergency relief and starting long-term programs in health, education, and nutrition. Kaye helped the world see why this mattered. His charm, humor, and energy made people pay attention. He didn't talk down to anyone, and he didn't make speeches filled with complicated language. He made things simple. He made them real. One of his most important projects was Assignment Children, a 1956 documentary about UNICEF's work in Asia. It showed the struggles children faced and how UNICEF was helping. The film didn't just inform, it made people feel something. It raised money and changed minds. Kaye was tireless. He spent years traveling for UNICEF, sometimes flying himself to remote locations. He was an experienced pilot, so he could reach places that were hard to access. This wasn't just a job for him. He truly believed in what he was doing. His efforts didn't go unnoticed. In 1981, he received the Gian Hirschholt Humanitarian Award, an Oscar given to those who use their fame for good. But the biggest recognition came in 1965, when UNICEF won the Nobel Peace Prize. Kaye was part of the delegation that accepted the award. He had helped the organization grow, and his work had inspired many others to follow in his footsteps. In 1940, Danny Kaye married Sylvia Fine. This wasn't just a love story. It was the start of a partnership that would shape his entire career. Sylvia was a songwriter and composer with a sharp eye for talent. She didn't just believe in Danny, she knew exactly how to make him a star. They had actually grown up in the same Brooklyn neighborhood, but their paths never crossed. That changed in 1939 when they worked together on an off-Broadway show. Sylvia was an audition pianist. Danny was a young performer looking for his big break. What neither of them knew was that their connection ran deeper than they realized. Sylvia's father, a dentist, had once hired Danny for odd jobs. Years later, that little detail became a family joke. From the moment they married, Sylvia played a key role in Danny's success. She wrote many of the songs that became his signature. She knew his style better than anyone, his speed, his energy, his ability to turn a song into something unforgettable. Some of his biggest early hits, like the songs from Up in Arms and Wonder Man, were Sylvia's creations. But she wasn't just a songwriter. She managed his career, guided his choices, and made sure the world saw him exactly as he was meant to be seen. Their marriage was strong, but it wasn't perfect. In the late 1940s, they separated for a time. Rumors swirled about Danny's involvement with actress Eve Arden, but whatever pulled them apart wasn't strong enough to keep them apart. They reconciled and stayed together for the rest of Danny's life. Many people believe Danny and Sylvia adopted 2 daughters, but that isn't true. They had one child, Danny Kaye, born in 1946. From the start, their family life was private. Unlike many Hollywood stars, Danny didn't invite the public into his personal world. Sylvia was the same way. She never sought attention for herself. Her focus was always on Danny's career, and she preferred to stay behind the scenes. Dina grew up surrounded by creativity. Her father had an energy that never seemed to run out. He was always exploring new interests, always pushing himself to learn something new. His career kept him busy, but he never let that take away from his role as a father. Danny Kaye was born to entertain. He made people laugh with his quick wit and energetic performances. But what the audience never saw was the fear he carried before every show. Stage fright followed him throughout his career. It was a constant battle. No matter how much experience he gained, he would pace backstage, heart racing, hands clenched. Doubt crept in, even though he had done it 100 times before. Sylvia Fine, his wife and closest collaborator, knew how to bring him back from the edge. She had been by his side from the start, shaping his career with her sharp writing and musical talents. But more than that, she was his anchor. Before each performance, she reassured him, calmed him, reminded him why he belonged on that stage. He relied on her in ways few people knew. That same intensity followed Danny in his work. He was never satisfied with good enough. Every performance had to be precise. Every joke, every song, every movement had to land exactly right. He rewrote scripts over and over, tweaking the smallest details. If something felt off, he would work on it until it was perfect. Rehearsals were exhausting. He ran through routines again and again, making sure the timing was flawless. Some of his co-stars found it frustrating, but Danny believed comedy was a science. There was a right way to do it, and he would not stop until he found it. His perfectionism sometimes led to friction with directors and co-stars who felt that his control was excessive. One notable example of this tension was during the filming of The Court Jester, 1955. The film featured complex sword fight scenes, which Kaye rehearsed extensively to ensure that the comedic elements were executed flawlessly. His dedication to getting every detail right sometimes led to disagreements with the director, Melvin Frank, and his co-star, Basil Rathbone. However, the end result was a film that showcased Kaye's unique blend of comedy and physical agility, demonstrating that his perfectionism was a key factor in his success. Danny Kaye was more than a comedian. He had a natural gift for languages. He didn't just speak them, he played with them. In The Court Jester, he switched between accents like it was nothing. One moment he sounded like a nobleman, the next like a bumbling fool. It made his performance even funnier. But this wasn't just an act. In real life, he loved speaking to people in their own language. Wherever he traveled, he made the effort. If he met someone who spoke French, he greeted them in French. If it was Italian, he switched to Italian. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to make people smile. On stage, he took it even further. He once conducted an entire orchestra using gibberish that sounded like German. Somehow, the musicians understood him. He made nonsense feel like a real language. It was part of his charm. He could connect with people in ways that went beyond words. Then there was flying. He didn't just love airplanes, he wanted to fly them himself. It started in the late 1950s. A friend of his had just learned to fly, and Kaye decided he would too. He started with a small plane, a Cessna 150. Soon, he moved on to bigger aircraft. Eventually, he trained to fly a Learjet. That wasn't something just anyone could do. It took serious skill. Flying wasn't just a hobby for him. He used it to help others. In 1968, he flew a Learjet to 65 cities in 5 days for UNICEF. He wasn't just a celebrity who gave money. He put himself in the work. He wanted to make a difference. His dedication was so impressive that the founder of Learjet made him an honorary vice president. It was just a title, but it showed how much he had earned the respect of real pilots. Then there was cooking. It started as an interest, but like everything else, Kaye took it seriously. He didn't just cook for fun, he studied. He trained under famous chefs, learning the details of Chinese and Italian cuisine. He even built a special kitchen behind his house. It had high-powered stoves designed for Chinese cooking. He wanted everything to be just right. In 1967, he took over the kitchen at Johnny Can's restaurant for a special event. He cooked for over 200 guests, many of them top executives from CBS. It was a huge success. French chefs were so impressed that they gave him an honorary award, something usually reserved for professionals. But for Kaye, cooking wasn't about awards. It was about bringing people together. He often hosted big dinners, not just for friends, but for charity. He used his love of food to raise money for causes he cared about. Just like with flying and language, he found a way to turn his passion into something meaningful. After Danny Kaye's passing in 1987, his estate revealed something extraordinary. Hidden away for years was a massive collection of memorabilia that captured the essence of his life and career. The collection, now housed at the Library of Congress, contains more than 89,000 items, spanning from 1918 to 1992. Most of it comes from the peak of his career between 1946 and 1988. Inside are scripts, costumes, personal letters, and rare photographs, each piece offering a glimpse into the world of an entertainer who mastered comedy, music, and dance. One of the most fascinating parts of the collection is the collection of scripts. These aren't just any scripts. They include material from The Danny Kaye Show, which ran on television from 1963 to 1967, and scripts from his earlier radio series from the 1940s. His biggest films are also represented, including Up in Arms, 1944, Hans Christian Andersen, 1952, and The Court Jester, 1956. These documents reveal how Kaye brought his characters to life, blending humor with charm and musical talent. What makes this discovery even more intriguing are the unseen projects. Among the treasures are notes and drafts for unproduced films and stage shows, revealing a side of Kaye that few ever saw. These ideas never made it to the stage or screen, but they show how his mind was constantly creating, pushing boundaries, and refining his craft. Some of these materials include handwritten notes on scripts, sketches of scenes, and ideas that might have become his next big hit. Music played a huge role in Kaye's career, and the collection reflects that too. There are lyric sheets and manuscripts, many written by his wife, Sylvia Fine. She was instrumental in shaping his musical identity, collaborating with legendary names like Sammy Cahn and Elmer Bernstein. Their work together helped define the unique sound and rhythm that made Kaye's performances unforgettable. Not every piece in the collection is tied directly to his career. Some of the items are simply reflections of his wide-ranging interests. An engraved walking stick from Harry Lauder, a parachute, a bullwhip, model airplanes, and even souvenir baseballs are among the items found. Each one tells a story about the man behind the performances. Kaye's passion for aviation, baseball, and even cooking is well documented, and these personal artifacts offer a deeper look at what fascinated him outside of entertainment. The photographs in the collection are just as revealing. There are headshots taken by famous photographers like Lotte Meitner-Graf, Roddy McDowell, and Philippe Halsman, but beyond the studio images are candid moments from his life, press events, social gatherings, and performances. They capture Kaye at work and at play, showing the charisma and warmth that made him beloved by so many. Danny Kaye's legacy is more than just his performances. His impact on entertainment and philanthropy continues to inspire. His name lives on in the Grammy Hall of Fame, a place that honors recordings with lasting influence. The Grammy Hall of Fame was created in 1973 to recognize music that has stood the test of time. While details about Kaye's induction are not widely documented, his contributions to music and comedy are undeniable. He had a rare ability to blend both, turning songs into performances that left audiences amazed. One of his most famous acts was Tchaikovsky from Lady in the Dark, where he rattled off the names of Russian composers at lightning speed. His style became legendary, influencing musicians and comedians for generations. Hollywood also recognized his brilliance. His name appears not once, but 3 times on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was honored for motion pictures at 656 Hollywood Boulevard, for radio at 6101 Hollywood Boulevard, and for recording at 6125 Hollywood Boulevard. On February 8, 1960, he received his motion picture star, marking a high point in his career. His films weren't just popular, they became timeless classics. The Court Jester, Hans Christian Andersen, and White Christmas are still beloved today. His charm, quick wit, and energy set him apart, making him one of the most versatile performers of his time. His influence on comedy and film is still felt, with many actors and comedians looking to him as a source of inspiration. Beyond entertainment, Kaye's passion for helping others shaped his legacy. He and his wife, Sylvia Fine, shared a deep commitment to the arts and to children's welfare. Their foundation, the Danny Kaye and Sylvia Fine Kaye Foundation, continues the work they started. It focuses on 2 things that mattered most to them: arts education and helping children in need. Kaye understood how important the arts could be for young people. As a young performer in the Catskills, he saw firsthand how music and theater could open doors. The foundation ensures that underprivileged children have access to music, dance, and theater programs, giving them opportunities they might not otherwise have. Kaye's dedication to children extended far beyond the stage. His work with UNICEF took him around the world, bringing attention to the needs of children everywhere. He used his fame not for himself, but for a cause. The foundation continues that mission, funding programs that provide health care, education, and nutrition to children who need it most.